Good afternoon, everyone. My speech is very, very short. I wouldn't even call it a speech. I just want to welcome everyone here. I have to tell you that up until 5 years ago, I really had no idea who Nancy Boyd was. I didn't grow up in Martinez like a lot of you. I've learned a lot about Nancy Boyd in the last 5 years, especially doing a little research for an article that was in the Gazette, or not in the Gazette, sorry, the Martinez Pleasant Hill Record last Thursday. And of course, I've heard a lot of stories from my mother-in-law, Carol Hatch, who was a good friend of Nancy's. So I just want to thank all of you for coming out. I do have a proclamation. I'm going to read it after Mike says a few words. One thing I want to tell you too is that I'm going to have to leave here probably a little bit. Won't be able to stay for the food, because I'm going down to Creek Monkey Tap House. Today is St. Baldrick's Day, and there's an organization called St. Baldrick's Foundation that raises money for children's cancer research. And I was asked that if they raised $10,000, would I shave my head? And I said, well, I've done it before, so sure, if you could raise $10,000. Well, they've raised $10,000. So just want to warn everybody, they tell me it's going to grow back. And I keep telling people now is that at least now when I do shave my head, you won't be able to see my bald spot. So anyway, with that, I'd like to introduce former mayor and present council member, Mr. Mike Medicini.
I was going to go down to the Creek Monkey and help him shave his head. It's going to be ugly, I know, but just very briefly, we're all, of course, very proud of the history that Martinez has with respect to the Peace Corps and and Nancy Boyd, who lost her life in the service to the Peace Corps. And I've always felt, I've talked to Harriet a little bit about this, I've always felt that, and I think I'm part of that generation that listened to John F. Kennedy when he said, ask not. Ask not what you want from your country, but ask what you can do for your country. And Nancy Boyd responded to that call, as did many others. I happen to be a military veteran, but I always felt that Peace Corps veterans have served equally and put their lives at risk for the benefit of our country. The Peace Corps has done a fantastic job over the years since John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Love the fact that we're all here, and there's just some wonderful people here, with the exception of Mary Perez, but I'm teasing her. She's going to paint your shoes. Don't stand still. But anyway, we love you all, and this is a great gathering for a great purpose. So thank you very much.
Your two-term cousin as a Peace Corps volunteer in...
I mentioned Tommy Menacini. I'm sorry, I thought that was in my brain, but I happen to be a military veteran. My cousin, Tommy Menacini, was a Peace Corps veteran and served in the Caribbean. You know, it was hard work, it was sacrifice, and unfortunately Tommy's no longer with us. He died of cancer more than a few years ago. But a veteran of Alhambra High School and a veteran of the Peace Corps, and if you can survive those things. So it's good to see everyone.
All right, so you know what, let me just take a minute and do like a little reverse chronological history to say how we wound up here today. So the first thing is I'm in my gym where I go to, and where did he go? And Mike is next to me on this bicycle, and I saw him walking with his family. It looked like his family sort of got on the treadmill, they knew what they were doing. Mike is on the bike, he's like pushing buttons, he's like doing a ride that Lance Armstrong on steroids couldn't have done.
That's because I didn't know what Mike was.
So anyhow, I said, you know what, man, I think maybe you should just leave that on manual for now. So then we start talking. I tell him I just got back from the Peace Corps. He says, oh, really? There's this park in town. It's named after this Peace Corps volunteer. Her name was Nancy Boyd. So I said, really? He said, yeah. He goes, I was the mayor before, I'm on the town council, and gave me the whole history of Martinez, which was great. So I come down to the park over here, and I see the Peace Corps sign, I see this monument. So I go online, I said, I have to find out about this woman, right? Like, what's the deal with her? So, interestingly, I see that it was 50 years ago today that Nancy Boyd was killed in a plane crash in South Africa. So I said, well, we have to, it's Philippines, sorry about that, I'm from South Africa, sorry. Okay, so I said, we have to do something. So then I talk to Mike, I run down to the Gazette, I meet Gerardo puts a little thing in the paper. And I don't know what's going to happen. I envision today it's going to be me, Roy Jeans, and Mike here. That's going to be it. But look what happened. All right. So, and I want to have a shout out to Roy Jeans over there, please, also. Thank you. All right, so let's move on. So Nancy, to all of the Peace Corps volunteers that were here, is an icon. Just like Mike said, she heard John Kennedy's call in 1961. She went down to the Philippines. She paid the ultimate price. I also have to include with that, in that plane with Nancy Boyd was another volunteer named Philip Maggard. All right, that was a volunteer that served with Nancy that also died in that same plane crash. So I want to recognize Philip and his family today as well. I don't want to just talk about death, but I do have to bring up something that happened recently. There was a volunteer named Nicholas Castle from Brentwood that just passed away within the last month from natural causes while he was serving. So our thoughts for the three of them. But when I think of Peace Corps bravery, naturally there's death, there's injury, all these things happen. But when I think of Peace Corps bravery, I think of the volunteer in South Africa that's holding the hand of the person that's dying of AIDS. I think of the volunteers in Latin America who build the school or plant the seeds so people can read and people can eat. And I just want to recognize all 200,000 Peace Corps volunteers that have left their home, their families, anything that's been comfortable for them, got on a plane, went to some remote place with no structure, and created a miracle. So that's the way I'd really like to look at bravery today as well. All right, but you know, today is a big day for history. We've got Nancy Boyd, we've got this history of Martinez, we've got 50 years of the history of the Peace Corps. All right, but I want to talk about the here and now for now. All right, we've got 4,000 volunteers that are in the field right now that are serving all over the world, that are brave, they're talented, they're living the dream, they're struggling the struggle. And can we just have like a really nice round of applause for the 4,000 that are serving right now? Okay, and on that note, I'll read this note. All right, so I spoke to this guy. He was amazing, Will Newman. A lot of people went to school with him. And this guy is like Mr. Peace Corps. I got on the phone with him. I couldn't get off the phone with him. I want to call him and talk to him every day. He's amazing. All right, but Will was a Peace Corps volunteer. Then Will became a training director. Then Will was an assistant country director, and then he became a country director. And I definitely want to nominate him for the next director of the Peace Corps. I mean, he's like our guy. So he couldn't be here today. Is his son Rod here by any chance? Is Rod here? Right, okay, well, he was possibly going to show up. But at any rate, so Will was nice enough to give me this nice letter that he wrote, so I'll read it. It says, "Greetings to all of you from Chile, Rhode Island. How I wish I could be there with you today. On a lovely fall day 48 years ago, I had the honor of dedicating the International Peace Corps fountain there at Nancy Boyd Park. I had become a Peace Corps volunteer in honor of Nancy Boyd's memory and to try to exemplify her passion for peace in the world. As many among you will testify, Nancy was truly a wonderful person, bright, positive, and cheerful always. If my experience is any guide, Nancy lives on in the lives and service of a great many people there in Martinez and even in the Philippines. Her tragic and untimely death and the cause of world peace places her securely not only in the embrace of God, but in the history of American heroes. Please never forget how individuals, through small acts of kindness and by all acts of generosity, can make positive difference in the lives of others. Like teaching, Peace Corps service is the gift that keeps on giving. One never knows who one inspires, and just showing up can be instrumental in forging trust, mutual respect, and understanding that can last for generations. Nancy Boyd's happiness came from helping others. What a treasured example she even is today. With every good wish to you all, Will Newman." All right. And on that note, I'm going to get out of here.
Graduate from Alhambra High School, former classmate of Nancy Boyd, and is the original individual who dedicated the park back in 1964. So I'd like to welcome her.
Selamat datang, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Does anyone need a translation? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is totally my honor to be here today to celebrate Nancy's life. I went to the British Crown colony of Sarawak in 1962, where we had to salute the Queen and sing God Save the Queen before we could have a drink, but we did it. I was there for Merdeka, which was Independence Day, when Sarawak joined the Federation of Malaysia. And I was there on that horrific November 23rd, 1963, when our beloved John Kennedy was assassinated. So I have an emotional time, but the Peace Corps was 2 of the best years of my life. To be able to be in the village, and I lived with the headhunters guys. I traveled by longboat on the slimy River Green, and traveled in the jungles of Borneo. Anyway, I get the word from my mother, we're back in snail mail days, that Nancy had been killed. And a couple of months after her death, I get another, well, my mother wrote once a week, hello. But the Philippine Airlines were flying Dot and Paul to the Philippines and then on to Hong Kong with the hopes of meeting me. And I wrote Mother back and said, well, Mom, you know, I'm a Peace Corps volunteer. The wages are 11 cents an hour. The ticket to Hong Kong is about $400. And the check was in the mail. And so I arrived in Hong Kong the day before Dot and Paul did, so that I could be at the airport to meet them. If you read Harriet's article last Thursday, our parents were married on the same day, lived in the same duplex in Martinez, and I'm a third-generation Martinian. So I'm there at Kai Tak Airport to greet them, and it was the hardest 4 days of my life. But I'm glad I could do it. And after I said goodbye to them at Kai Tak, sometimes you get rewards. And I met Captain Charlie Brown, who was posted on the USS Oriskany and had dinner on the Oriskany in Hong Kong Harbor, which was kind of fun. But anyway, I returned to Sarawak, back to my service. Well, going back a little bit, when I went to Kuching, which means cat in Malay, to ask permission to go to Hong Kong, I was told that the permission was granted. It was work time, it was not vacation time, and was told that he was contacting Washington, D.C. because he thought the Peace Corps should pay for my ticket, and they did. So I said, I wrote Mother back and said, do you want the check back? Peace Corps paid for my ticket. And Mother said, no, you enjoy it. Thank you, Mom. I came back from the Peace Corps. I did dedicate this park 48 years ago. And after my final words were, for those who come to enjoy the facilities here, let it be in peace. And I think it's a gorgeous park. And when I was coming back home, I spent a week, I went because I had a broken heart, you know. What better reason to go leave the country than get even with him. I spent a week with him before I got back to Martinez, and because he'd been an exchange student too, so I felt he'd help me readapt. And I called Mom and said, well, I'm on this plane coming into San Francisco. I said, I only want you and Dad there at the airport because I'm strange. But Dot and Paul were at the airport too. So one thing I want to leave you with, at the 25th anniversary of the Peace Corps, we assembled behind our flags of service at the Lincoln Memorial and marched to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington, where a memorial service commemorating the lives of the 25 volunteers we had lost in the service of the Peace Corps. Nancy and Phil were 2 and 3. And a rose was presented for each of the volunteers. And I was able to retrieve a rose and bring it back to her brother, David Boyd. So, anyway, with that, Trima Kasebanya. Oh, and I have to say Mabuhay. That's welcome in Tagalog. Thank you so much for the honor of being here again today.
Thank you, Sally.
Hi, everybody. Probably lighten it up a little bit. Sally Sullender and I were the only Sallys in Alhambra when we went there. It was a very unique name at that time. When I moved to Nevada, I found out that Sally was a very common name for the madams. So I fit right in, and so it is my pleasure today. I'm so pleased to be asked to honor my friend Nancy and also the Peace Corps that she loved so much. I'm also proud to represent the many classmates and friends here. Nancy, can you either wave or, because there's a lot of you, and I don't recognize a lot of you. It's been a while. Just lots of, and we all have our special memories of Nancy, and they're all a tribute to the joy that she brought to us. We loved her so much. Mine began about 5th grade when my family moved to Ward Street, and Nancy was right up the hill in Lafayette. And so we became good friends, and those kinds of friends, you know, that walked to school with every day, and we went to the Martinez Junior High and home again. And, you know, those special times, you know, you choke on your first cigarette, and and those wonderful memories. Nancy, whenever she took anything on, it was with gusto and passion and compassion. She followed through on everything she did, and when she said she was going to do something, she did it, and she led, and then she sucked everybody else in to help her out. So Lois, Juan Mateo, Art was just wondering, and I thought of this, Lois. I actually did. I thought, you know, Nancy was ran for treasurer in junior high school. Of course, I was her campaign manager, and just shocked her when I wrote a song and dance to for her campaign. And I know I'm not going to reenact it, but it was cute. Nancy was humiliated, I think, but I didn't care. And then she was the head cheerleader. I was a pet. And she was editor of The Torch, and I was on staff. So I was always happy to be a support to her passion. Green blast. Life photographer was there, plus the photographer from the SB News Press. The next night, there was an article in the News Press about us, but it was slightly moldy and really panned us. So good old me wrote a letter to the paper and griped about it. Yesterday, the reporter who wrote it called me up and spent 20 minutes apologizing. I was slightly faked out, but very pleased. So finally, yes, finally, well, she never shut up. I always imagined Nancy going on, if she had been here, and when the feminist movement came, I could just see her out there, bra ablaze, and marching for everyone's rights. She was just that way. In Christmas, before her passing, she wrote me a Christmas card and this letter, which I want to share, if I can do this without my glasses, because I'm ugly. Dear Sal, sorry I haven't written before, but I've been really busy getting settled in my house. The country is really beautiful, and they hi. And they didn't lie when they made South Pacific. The people are wonderful. I've never been so welcome or made so at home before. Nancy, my roommate, and I have been the curiosity object since we arrived. We've managed to make true friends with a local family and the doctor here. I have a great time and some good laughs. And as for my job, I've really been lucky. The teachers are anxious and willing to learn, and I've been able to help in quite a few classes. My principal, who's also a teacher, had a miscarriage, so while she was recuperating, I took over her 5th grade English class and also the 6th grade. I was really panicked for the first 2 hours, since I had never taught a class in my life. And here I was standing in front of 60 kids and about 10 teachers who came to watch, talking to them and tried to teach them to say pale instead of fail, pony not phony, ship not sheep, and sit not bleep. Somehow I survived, and the kids were honestly interested. Another time, a science teacher was absent, so I was asked to teach that class. I dissected a live frog with a dull needle, dull razor blade, and dull scissors. I sweated losing my breakfast for a few minutes there, but the looks on the kids' faces when they saw the beating heart of that frog made me feel so elated that my stomach immediately settled. The English spoken here is very different from ours because of the different local dialects and intonation, sentence patterns, and sounds. I've already picked up several cuties, and I know people should get a few laughs out of me when I come home. I completely kill everyone off at the dances, parties by doing the twist. Nancy, they call us Nancy 1 and Nancy 2 to avoid confusion, and I'm number 2 since I'm 2 years younger, doesn't do it, and I wish I'd never said that I could. But you know how I can't resist dancing and hooping it up.
This has been quite a week for me because I've been here for 50 years, and in fact I was a brand new teacher at the junior high when the tragic news about Nancy came, and I didn't know her and I didn't know the family, but certainly I picked up very quickly how important and how beloved she and the family were in this town and how deeply everyone felt about the loss. And then I've lived here for 50 years and know about Nancy Boyd Park and why it's named Nancy Boyd Park, so I thought I knew everything until I started researching the story. And one thing I found out, there were 3 members of the Alhambra class of 1960 who became Peace Corps members. Sally first, Nancy second, and I believe Will later, but Will Newman was one of those 3. What an outstanding class. And I can tell you they carry on that tradition because the committee I've worked with, and I know Anna Marie is going to read the names, they're go-getters too. And they put this all together in 2 days over a week. Rob inspired it, but these gals really got going. So thank you for all you've done there. The other great thing about the week for me was I made a new friend. Nancy won. Nancy Ann Forrell of Andall was Nancy Boyd's roommate, and she, what a gal. And I'm really glad I have a Comcast phone because we spent 2 or 3 hours on the phone talking, and I felt like I met a new friend. She was very sad she couldn't come today, but she did write a letter to be read today. And it starts, "Thank you for letting me participate in the rededication of Nancy Boyd Park. I visited the park in 1974. I brought my husbands and my 2 sons there, and I had a hard time finding it. It surprised me when we asked a policeman for directions, and he didn't know where it was. We finally asked a young boy who was riding his bike whether he knew where the park was, and he said, 'The Nancy Boyd Park? Sure, follow me and I'll take you there.' When we arrived, I watched my boys, 7 and 10 years old, run around and enjoy the park. I thought how nice it was and how happy Nancy would have been to see my 2 kids play there." Which brings me to the fact that Nancy loved children. When we arrived in Mabini, the kids followed her around as if she were the Pied Piper. She enjoyed teaching English as a second language and science in the Mabini school. I taught in a school about 3 miles away, so that we would exchange stories when I arrived home from my school. Invariably, she would have a story about what some, quote, adorable little child had said or done that day. We had our unofficial companion in Mabini. He was a Muslim boy, about 12 years old, named Abdul Pata. Although his English was limited, he managed to communicate with us. He really became like one of our family. He followed us around and enjoyed watching Nancy do the twist. There were dances almost every week at the school basketball court, which was lit at night, and music was played on a record player, all run by gasoline-generated electricity. Nancy was very good at the twist. After Nancy was killed, I arrived back at our little house, and Abdul was sitting on the back steps where he usually sat, with tears streaming down his cheeks. The only thing he managed to say was, "No more twist." That sort of sums up what went out of my life and the lives of kids in the town. We lost a person who was loving, lively, and giving, and she danced a wonderful twist. And I lost someone who was like my sister. Nancy Ann Forrell Andall, Peace Corps volunteer, 62-64, Philippines.
Nancy Boyd Memorial and National Peace Corps Week. Whereas President John Kennedy signed the bill creating the Peace Corps on March 1st, 1961. And whereas one of the early applicants was Alhambra High School graduate Nancy Boyd, then a freshman at the University of California at Santa Barbara. And whereas Nancy Boyd finished her Peace Corps training at San Jose State University to be a teaching aide in English and science on the island of Mindanao. And whereas on March 2nd, 1963, Nancy Boyd and another Peace Corps volunteer, Philip Maggard of Buffalo, Wyoming, were aboard the Philippines Airlines DC-3 that crashed south of Manila, killing all 28 on board, becoming one of the first of over 200 Peace Corps volunteers to have died while serving. And whereas Nancy was recognized for her dedication to helping those who had so few advantages and needed so much help in alignment with the mission of the National Peace Corps. And whereas on March 2nd, 2013, marks the 50th anniversary of Nancy Boyd's death, and March 1st, 2013 is the 52nd anniversary of the establishment of the Peace Corps. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Rob Schroeder, Mayor of the City of Martinez, on behalf of the Martinez City Council, do hereby commemorate the anniversary of the death of Nancy Boyd and the establishment of the National Peace Corps, and declared February 25th through March 2nd, 2013 as National Peace Corps Week. So, and we were talking about putting this up in City Hall, but I think really where we should try to mount it is either on this building or inside this building at the park. So, thank you very much.